evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Let's Talk About It. This is Susan Johnson, and I'm here with my co-host, Dennis O'Brien. And boy, have we got a special guest this evening, don't we, Dennis?
Hey, absolutely. It's not every day when you get the Speaker of the State House of Representatives. I think we had Matt Ritter on probably 2-3 years ago.
Yeah, a couple of years ago.
It's been a while.
Yeah, but he is always here for us, and I am really absolutely thrilled that our Speaker of the House, Matt Ritter, Representative Matt Ritter, is here. Welcome to the show, Matt.
Thank you, Susan and Dennis. It's a pleasure to be here and look forward to the conversation.
Absolutely. We had quite a great session for many, many of our communities here in town and all throughout the state.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm not involved directly, but I certainly am a fan of both of you, a big fan, and I do take note of what's going on at the Capitol, and I used to spend a lot of time down there years ago when I was a legal services lawyer, and I did a lot of, I used to come down during the session and help Rafi Podolsky with, with his work down there. We worked together. Rafi and I we probably started in legal services around the same time. I started in Willimantic and actually in Vernon in Rockville in 1972, and Rafi was, I believe, in Waterbury when he started.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting.
Yeah, well, Rafi's still up there and still lives down the street from me. So,
yep.
I've known him a long time.
I get reports all the time. I know he's there.
Yep. Rafi and I have good conversations about housing and all kinds of planning and development issues. And he's full of information, so it's really good to have him around to talk to. And I knew Rafi, too, when I was at Legal Services doing the Medicare, Medicaid work. And so, but not really what Rafi was focused on. And Dennis was more in tune. He was the housing litigation director for Legal Services for a time there.
For a time.
Yeah.
I was in legal services for 23 years, Matt, and then I left to go into private practice for a while, and then I got myself elected to the position of judge of probate out here, which probably was my favorite job because I am a control freak and I like being a judge. but that's why I liked umpiring. But I did a lot of coaching too.
Right.
But umpiring was you didn't have to deal with the kids as much, but you had to deal with their disappointment sometimes. But anyway, great to have you on the show. I'm going to turn it over. Susan worries about me talking so much. I am considered to be the Bill Curry of Willimantic. I give long speeches, so I'm going to try not to.
That is very kind of you, Dennis.
You two know a lot more about subject matter today. I'm going to be chiming in from time to time.
But we're going to talk about, and first of all, I just want to praise our speaker, Matt Ritter, for his availability, no matter what the situation is, who the legislator is, who the people in the community are. They can contact our Speaker of the House and have a conversation on the issues that are important to them. So I thank you for that ability to have us reach out to you, or even you reaching out to us, so we can talk about the issues that are really important to our respective communities. So thank you so much for that. It's an important asset in a speaker.
My pleasure. I don't believe in hiding. So.
I know you don't.
No.
Plus, you're highly organized, and I always praise you for that, too, because you're amazing.
Thank you.
Well, another thing I love about you, Matt Ritter, is that you're a city guy, and I'm a city guy. I lived a third of my life in New Britain, and 2/3 here, and pretty much in Willimantic, which is a city. It's small, but it is a city. It's an urban center.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so it's great having you and Marty Looney from New Haven, and in the positions that you're in, because you certainly understand the issues that are faced by the urban centers of the state.
And speaking of the urban centers that are faced by some of the things that face our urban centers is what has been a real problem for years and years and years, but has been addressed and is fully addressed in terms of our education cost-sharing grants throughout the state of Connecticut. So I wanted to kind of start with the fact that we had been underfunded here to the tune of almost $10 million until 2017, when we finally put ourselves on a trajectory to fully fund our education cost-sharing grants for every single town in the state of Connecticut. And you've been a fabulous help with that. Want to talk some more about that?
Yeah, I mean, it started in 2017, the year known as the bipartisan budget, which we both lived through and didn't get a budget done until the end of October. But it did lead to a 10-year phase-in. We ended up making it an 8-year phase-in. And it's a big difference. If you compare ECS aid from 2016, let's say, to 2025, it's pretty dramatic, and it's really helped the urban areas and municipalities. I mean, the one thing that they'll tell you is that they're still seeing costs go up, and special education has grown, right? In the city I represent, it's almost 29% of the budget now. So now there's a new challenge, right? And so, I don't know that any superintendent would say that we've solved all of the problems, but I think you definitely, to your point, Susan, it's a really big improvement of where we were. And we're just going to have to keep working through it and making sure that we're supporting our districts as best we can. But it was a very successful to finally get to that fully funded. Yes.
Absolutely. A big challenge and a big opportunity for here in Windham, because before that bill was passed and making sure that we were going to finally fully fund our local communities, this little teeny town of Windham, 25,000 people, with about 4,000 students, we were underfunded to the tune of $10 million a year, which is huge. And now we've made that up, and we are now getting full funding in accordance with that education cost sharing formula, which, as you know, Mr. Speaker, that was the result of the Horton versus Meskel case that the state Supreme Court said we must do, and we hadn't been following it for a long time. So I'm really happy to see us following that court law.
Yep, absolutely.
And then the next thing that you did, you helped create the Select Committee on Special Education. And first of all, I want to thank you so much for appointing me to that committee, because, as you know, it's something that I've been talking about for some time now, especially when we take a look at the students with the special needs and towns, again, that have been underfunded like ours, but also all the other towns. It doesn't matter if you were an underfunded town or a town that got the right amount of money or could add money to your budget. All the towns know that how we were doing special education really hurt all the students, especially the special needs students, but it also had an impact on the students who were not special needs, because a lot of the resources that should have gone to the population that isn't special needs were being used for the special needs students because they had the bigger need. And so now we're balancing those equities out, and I can't thank you enough again for recognizing this and working with both sides of the aisle on this issue.
Yeah, and first of all, I mean, Representative Johnson, not only did I know you know the subject, but I knew you'd do the work. And so we knew how important the committee was going to be to flush these issues out. Just so listeners know, House Bill 5001 means it was our number one priority as a caucus. And it passed with no opposition. Do you know how hard it is to get through something to the House Representatives in Connecticut with no opposition?
Yes, I do.
I mean, it's pretty remarkable, and a lot of that goes to the work of that select committee that you were a part of. But, again, I go back to, we're up to about 30% in the cities of the budget is special education. And I think that the reality of that is, people say, well, is there over-identification? There's different theories. The reality is we're probably now properly identifying what it should be. From a long time, we probably didn't do that. And so there's going to be more funding needed. There's going to need to be more regionalization. We also put money in for bonding to let local school districts, construct places for special education facilities. So there's a lot to do. I think you're going to be talking about this for a long time.
Yes, we have, and this is wonderful, wonderful work and great leadership on your behalf for the rest of the communities. And this is something that is really, really needed. And the sooner, this kind of leads me into the next discussion. But first, Dennis has something you want to say.
Well, I just wanted to talk about this special education. As a town attorney, I've been town attorney in about 5 towns, and I gave an awful lot of legal advice to my own town when I sat on the town council after I retired as judge of probate. In fact, Matt, I distinctly remember when we had our high school renovation, and I called down there because I knew that the town owned the building, that it wasn't owned by the Board of Education, and we had to sign off on it, the town council. We actually had some opposition on the town council, but we got it through. But I needed some guidance, some legal guidance, and when I called down to Shipman and Goodwin, I talked to you, and you guided me through the process, and that was I still remember that. I was very proud of what I did as a member of the council, because it wasn't easy. This wasn't something that everybody was all happy about, in favor of, because it was quite expensive. Even though we get a very high reimbursement rate, we got a high reimbursement rate in the end. But I remember talking to you about that, and you set me straight, and we got it done on time, and it was a big deal. It's just now it's finished now, right, Sue?
Yes, it is finished, and it's fabulous. And a lot of the people who were complaining about the 79.5% reimbursement rate are thrilled that we were able to get, with your work and with Senator Looney's work, and me and Senator Flex are working together, 95% reimbursement, which kind of makes up in a way for a lot of the money we lost over the last 25 years or so with a lower reimbursement rates for our education cost sharing grant being limited.
Yeah.
So that really.
And that's a fair point. Yeah. I mean, not only school construction, right, but also
Right.
the new indoor air quality bonding. So the state has taken on more responsibility on capital repairs and building new schools and renovating. And we also passed a new program this year for $30 million called DRIP, which is going to be used sort of like TAR is for local aid for roads and bridges, for smaller capital improvements for boards of ed who don't have the cash to do little things like new boilers and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, one area where the state has stepped up is that, and it's a good point. We shouldn't ignore that. It is a lot of money and very expensive to renovate and build these schools and do other capital improvements.
That's an excellent point. And one of the things, as someone who represents this district and other districts like the one you represent, I find that, and here we go to referendum on all these kinds of expenditures. If a town has to go to referendum, as a general rule, the analysis by the state has been that the buildings usually are not in very good condition by the time they finally get to the point where they get fixed. So so towns that do that really need to take a look, and this will really help maintain the buildings so that the big fix doesn't have to occur. Because as you know, if you don't fix your building right away, it causes damage, and the damage gets to be more costly to repair. So that's an excellent point.
Yeah, I just want to add, I'm really happy, Matt, to hear about this program for smaller towns that you mentioned, because I still represent three small towns, very small towns in Connecticut: Andover, Eastford, and Chaplin. And I'm so pleased that Chaplin's budget passed last night, and so did the Region 11 school district. So I'm very happy. I am taking great joy from that kind of thing. And I continue to be a town council, but in smaller towns. And, the small towns have special education needs as well, but they certainly are not tantamount to what we have in the inner cities like Hartford, and even in my hometown of New Britain, and even in Wyndham, Willimantic.
That's right.
Thank you so much for your efforts in this regard. This is so important.
I appreciate that.
And we really have to, Matt, one of the things that I notice as somebody who's been a town attorney in several towns for the last 25, 26 years since I left legal aid, is that boards of education and town hall come into conflict a lot of times because there isn't enough funding to go around. And under your stewardship as the speaker, and with Jason Rojas as your majority leader, I mean, you guys have done a masterful job of taking care of a lot of these issues for both education departments and town halls, and it makes it a lot easier for me as a town attorney. And I always try to get everybody to sit down and work things out between the Board of Education and Town Hall. Makes it a lot easier for us all. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Appreciate that.
Yeah, that's great. And the other thing I wanted to add about the Select Committee for Special Education, and what we did this cycle, is we added special education to the Education Cost Sharing Grant. So that'll be included as the regular funding part of the grant. And we also fully funded the Excess Cost Grant as well, which is something that kind of gets not fully understood by a lot of the municipalities when they see a bill due after the year is complete. But a lot of people who do understand how the system works, and this is one of the reasons we have both sides of the aisle working together on this bill, is that they know that these are unanticipated costs that really sometimes go way over what was projected for the budget for the year before. So that was another thing that I really was very, very pleased to see with respect to our select committee's work on special education.
Yeah, it was a very big success. Very proud of the stuff we did on special ed. No question.
So I want to just move along a little bit to the Medicaid program. And first, as you know, this is something that is still being discussed on the federal level, and a lot of our money comes from the federal government. And so, but we did a good job this year in terms of trying to bring up the actual reimbursement rates for providers for Medicaid. And I have to say the discussion on the national news and the way people are discussing this in other areas doesn't really fully have people understand what is Medicaid actually funding. So I thought that maybe we could just go through what the Connecticut Medicaid programs are called. Husky, A, B, C, and D. Under the Affordable Care Act, it's the Connecticut Healthcare Access, where they get the insurance subsidies for work or wherever. Generations are federally qualified health centers. That's also subsidized by the Medicaid program. And then, of course, there's the Medicare Savings Program that is subsidized for people who are on Medicare, and they would have to pay for insurance. But if they're within a certain income, the Medicaid program comes in and pays for their health insurance co-insurance payments. So those are some of the things that Medicaid, of course there's other issues like the hospital tax and so on, but just the on the ground kind of thing where people are looking at what is Medicaid. I don't think that we've been very clear in our discussion about how Medicaid is actually keeping money available to people and keeping our institutions, our hospitals, and our providers so that they can stay open with enough staff to provide services to people in the state of Connecticut.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it on the head, and Medicaid is not just direct assistance for subsidies so people can afford health care. It's also providing money in some cases to workers at, say, nursing homes who work really hard jobs and long hours. It's making sure that a dentist or a primary care doctor has the incentive to see patients on Medicaid by increasing their reimbursement rate. Imagine working somewhere and getting 65 cents on the dollar for your work, and we're trying to make that more competitive, because what we don't want to have happen is people who have Medicaid insurance can't find a primary care doctor or a dentist willing to take the Medicaid. So Connecticut, in the biennium budget, we get massive increases, and we get $1 back from the federal government for every dollar we put in. Now, I don't know what's going to happen in Washington, and we'll have to look closely at whatever they end up passing, but the general rule still should hold true. Every dollar we put in, the Fed send $1 back. And so if you're thinking about budgeting, there should be no program that should be more popular than Medicaid because of the federal match. And so for us this year to put in about $25 million in year one and another, call it 50, 60 in year two, that actually means 100 to 120 in year two because of the federal match. And it's going to be spread out amongst everybody equally. We're not going to pick winners and losers, and I think it's a really big success, particularly as Washington, unfortunately, is taking aim at the Medicaid program.
Yes, it is, and the fact is that these reimbursement rates are vitally important for all of our providers, and it will impact. One of the things I don't think has been expressed enough on our where we're communicating nationally in the national news shows is the fact that if these reductions occur and these providers do not get the money and people are left out of the program for whatever reason, whether we have to add more people to, say, the Department of Social Services to process the claims, the Medicaid, they have to go in and get renewed every 6 months as opposed to every year. So redeterminations have to occur more frequently. Those kinds of things will cost the state more money. So those redeterminations will be more. If we don't do them, then we may not get the reimbursement from the federal government. If we have those kinds of issues to address, then one of the things that we may be watching out for is that there will be fewer providers. Now, if we have fewer providers, that doesn't just impact the people who have the needs in terms of the income limitations. It's also going to include people who don't have income problems, who actually have maybe full insurance. But because there are so many more limited numbers of providers available, what's going to happen is more hospitals in rural areas may close. As you know, I'm already experiencing problems with Wyndham Hospital, that is considered a rural hospital here. And we also have Day Kimball, which is also considered a rural hospital in Connecticut. So these places will be at a huge disadvantage. Providers, like I mentioned, the federally qualified health centers, there will be another place where we may not have as many providers, doctors and nurses, APRNs, to do the work for these people. So these will be places again that will be limiting access to people in the general public, not just low-income people.
Yeah, I mean, there's no political affiliation when you need a doctor, right? I mean,
right.
You go to the hospital and you need quality care, and we'll look at the extent of the cuts and reductions when the bill, if it passes. I don't know what's going to happen in the House or what they're going to do, but when it's ready, we've set aside money in the state budget, close to $600 million, to try to prepare for any changes that are needed in state expenditures. And we have a OPM has to give us a detailed report as soon as the budget passes, within about 30 days of it. So we'll be ready to go, and I expect a special session to maybe address any concerns that we have going forward.
Okay, that's great, and that's good planning by everybody, both sides of the aisle, by the executive branch. Everybody's done a great job with planning our budget. We have, like people say, well, how did you deal with the budget? I said, well, we took a look and we operated like we're not going to lose money. On the other hand, we do have this money set aside, and good planning by all sides of the aisle and the executive branch to make sure that we can continue, at least for now. And then we'll have to see what happens after that when we go into special session. And I guess we're all planning to be in special session, whether about the housing bill 5002, which was vetoed by the governor, or whether we go in straight shot sometime in September, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that the agenda may be a little larger than just the housing bill and federal reimbursement issues, but we'll see what the summer provides. But we'll be, putting together some ideas and looking at some of the bills that didn't pass and caucusing that sometime in August, probably.
Mm-hmm. So
I'm sure everybody can't wait for the summer caucus of August.
I'm sure we're all waiting in pins and needles here.
No, I know that Susan
exactly.
enjoys those caucuses, and I know I would if I were there. I mean, I think it's great to get everybody together talking about the issues.
Oh yeah,
I'm glad she does. The speaker doesn't always enjoy the caucuses, but yes, they are.
Well, I just want to know.
Your responsibilities are much greater in that regard, and that's a lot of pressure, but you handle it quite well, Matthew. And we're really pleased that you do, and I hear all kinds of good things coming from Susan and other legislators that I know about the way things are run down at the Capitol, under your supervision. Fantastic.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, the results. I mean, you can't argue with the results. The results of this session are very, very impressive. I was really looking forward to this show. I've already learned a lot just being on the show, listening to you two talk about Medicaid, because as much as Susan knows about it, I know very little, and you two know so much more than I do, and it's really edifying for me to have to hear that.
And just on that point, people talk about Medicaid, and you'll hear people say, well, what's the big deal, right? So we cut Medicaid a little bit, and people have to recertify their, income levels more frequently, and maybe kick people off. By not giving people Medicaid, you're not saving money, actually. It's just passing on who pays for it, because under our law, you can't deny anybody care who walks into an emergency room. You can't. You cannot deny them by law. So all that happens is somebody goes into the emergency room. They now don't have insurance because you kicked them off Medicaid, right? And guess what? That same individual, that same person, now the hospital has the right to collect it from everybody else. Everybody's insurance premiums just go higher, and you're paying more for that uncompensated care. So it really is penny wise, pound foolish. And I think we're going to see that if we lose in Connecticut. I saw we might lose 170,000 people off the Medicaid rolls. Those people are still going to need care, and they're not going to get preventive care, so they're going to get more emergency care, and we're all going to pay for it. It's just a shift to who pays for it.
Exactly. That's so well put. Thank you so much for that. That is something that I I think it's an excellent way to frame it, because having that cost shift, that is what goes on so often in the healthcare industry. It goes on with so many of other things that the federal government, when they cut back, they shift the cost to the state, and then the state
Yep.
says, how do we deal with this? And the states all have spending caps pretty much, so they end up shifting the cost to the local communities, and it ends up costing
Yeah.
more. And that, I just want to go back
And we
to, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, just on the spending cap, Representative Johnson, we spent a lot of time, you and I, talking about the state spending cap. And one thing that I've asked, OFA to look at is if we lose federal dollars, the way they're reimagining Medicaid and SNAP, for example, what does that mean for spending cap, right? My argument would be that it's essentially they're creating a new program, a whole new infrastructure that we have to put in place to fund. So, I'm hoping there might be some not end arounds, but exceptions from the spending cap because of the way they're making changes to these programs, and that would be helpful to backfill the lost funding if it was exempt from the spending cap.
Excellent point, and that's another thing that we have worked really hard to make sure that we're within the fiscal guardrails. But on the other hand, we don't put ourselves in a situation where we exclude people who need help now. We're going to make sure we
That's
take
right.
care of the population, and we take care of the people who are here and now, and we also pay the debt. And right now, our guardrails go higher than just paying the debt. But we now have this big reserve fund, and if we can reorganize things and restructure things, if we must, then we'll be able to continue to pay the debt, but also take care of the people. And that is that's the greatest thing that we can do for our local communities, because I think a lot of people think that the fiscal guardrails save them money, but on the other hand, if you don't provide the municipalities for the funding that they need to take care of the people in each respective town, then what happens is the property taxes go up. And one of the big complaints is property taxes in Connecticut are fairly high, and we don't want to increase that cost in these situations. So the guardrails are good, but we have to also balance the equities, and you are excellent at analyzing that, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate it very much. And so does our community.
Thank you. Yeah.
Everybody in this country should be worried and concerned about what's going on in Washington right now with the big bill. I won't say any more about it being. It's just big. The big bill. Okay, we should all be concerned about the big bill, but because I live in Connecticut and because we live in Connecticut, we are much better off than in most places in the United States because of the way our state government, the legislative branch, the executive branch have acted to over the years to be ready for this kind of thing, even though who could have predicted this was going to happen, but we were ready for anything. And it's anything is happening now, is going to happen. Hopefully it won't be too bad, but if you're a Connecticut resident, you're much better off than if you were living almost anywhere else.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said about that. I think we've done a good job of preparing for it, but again, we'll see what the bill ends up being. I have no idea what happened down there. I just know we'll be ready.
Yep, and that's great. Thanks to everybody who works together like this. I'm very pleased to be part of this process. Now, I wanted to just go a little bit more on to the early childhood fund, so that we can have early childhood access to all the children in Connecticut. And I was very pleased to see us moving on in that direction, because one of the things that we need to be able to do is make sure that the little ones have access to that kind of educational opportunities all throughout the state of Connecticut, and this is a great start.
Yeah, I mean, we have put well over $225 million into a fund. We're going to try to keep putting more money into it so that it builds up to somewhere around, $600-700 million, and then generates enough interest on an annual basis to help subsidize free preschool for families in Connecticut under an income level of, right now we're targeting about $100,000. It's remarkable. It is so expensive. It's so cost prohibitive. And number two, it takes people out of the workforce where they don't want to be, per se. And we want to give people options. It's funny, this has become a big issue across the country, I think, in blue and red states. And I think people are going to copy what we did. They're going to emulate what we did, because we're not just doing a one-time, throw it in the budget and figure it out later. We're asking people to be patient, Give us 3 to 4 years to build up this fund, and then people will see the benefits from there. It's also going to pay the workers more. It's hard to get people. You can't say that the most formative years are, 1 through 5, and then have a gross underpayment of those, that staff that provides that education, provides those services. So there's a commitment to pay them more money, and I think it's going to be great for the state. It's going to take a couple of years, but ultimately it will be, I think, a very successful program and copied across the country.
That is excellent, and I do plan to present that at the next meeting of Women in Government, which I have now been appointed state director, and I'm going to be pleased to present.
Well
that.
deserved.
Thank you so much.
Big smile on her face when she said that, Matt.
Yeah, well deserved. Yep.
Thank you.
I'm very happy for her.
And so moving on about the birthing centers, I was very, very pleased to see that we have birthing centers approved as part of the process that women can take advantage of, and it's just a matter now of centers being created and getting the approval from the Department of Public Health. And this is another thing that will provide more access, even though we're losing access to some degree, like we lost here at Windham Hospital for maternity and delivery. Having more access throughout the state for birthing centers, I think for people, women having children, is going to be a big plus as we move forward with this concept.
Yeah, I mean, it's giving people options, right?
Yep.
And it's enabling for more options for people both, not only in terms of where they want to have their child,
Yep.
but also to your point, if we see hospitals because they're not getting enough births, they can't keep maybe the emergency room open for that, but these smaller places might be able to find a better cost-fitting analysis to make it worse for them. They can make it work. The margins are probably a little different than a hospital has to have that entire ward maybe.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, of course, as you know, the people who are going in labor in the emergency room, whether they're set up for maternity delivery, have to accept somebody who's delivering right there on the spot. But through that same rule that applies to hospitals having to take everyone, the EMTALA rule, that is something that they will have to do. But having the birthing centers, I think, will help create also a sense of community for people who are about to have a baby, and also maternal mental health and the bridge that we've been talking about, bridging health care after a birth. And we're looking at extending that here in Eastern Connecticut, and I think that'll be a great thing. It was started in Bridgeport, and the bridging of the services to have having nurses come out to the home after the babies are born and be with the mother, because a lot of the problems with health care, either for the baby or the mom, actually occur after the birth of the child. And to be monitored and have somebody to talk to about health care and behavioral health issues or physiological problems, these are things that will be a great plus as we lose some of the hospital access. Creating these bridging abilities is something that's going to really, I think, dovetail nicely with the concept of the birthing centers.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
And moving on, we also to children, we did a lot of good stuff here for the kids. The tax credits, right? We did get tax credits for.
We did.
Yes,
we
did
for
the children
we
and
figured
parents.
it out.
And it's very, very, very good. So we are making sure now that people here file for those income tax credits, and it's a great program. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who currently is eligible for the Earned Income Tax Credit, which is a program that Connecticut's had since 2011, will be eligible for, if you have a child, a $250 check in the mail. It's a refundable tax credit. And the hope is we'll grow this over time, right? There are some states that base it per child. We're only able to afford right now the $250 total for a family. But we're going to keep working on it and build on it. And I think it's really great. And I think if anybody's saying to themselves, will that make a big difference? Look, I acknowledge it's not going to be life-altering. But you know what? It shows that the state of Connecticut is working towards understanding the affordability of raising a child. And I think you couple the child tax credit with the child care trust fund that we just talked about.
Yep.
And I think you're showing people, you're demonstrating that we're really serious about affordability of raising a kid in our state. These are two really good starts to helping to solve that problem.
Yes, excellent, excellent. And I'm just very thrilled with that. Yeah, go ahead, Dennis.
Yeah, I didn't say anything before about it, but I'm thrilled by the notion of the increased opportunity for preschool education for children. As a probate judge, I was also the first administrative judge of the children's court out here that covered all of Windham County and half of Talon County. I did that for 7 or 8 years with Judge Lawler appointed me, and I really took that job seriously. I love being a judge, but I also loved even more working with families with children, just as I did when I was in legal services. And that is going to make a big difference out here. That is going to make a big difference in places like Hartford and Willimantic and New Britain and New Haven and Waterbury and Bridgeport and places like that. A really big difference, because those kids, as you know, you have kids. Kids are capable of learning from the get-go, and to have them in a place where they're being well cared for while their parents may be working, and also being able to learn all kinds of things when they're young and develop a love for learning at a very young age. Because once you pick up that love for learning, you don't lose it. You don't lose it easily. And I think preschool is, oh wow, what a great idea it is, and how vitally important it is for you to have set up this new fund. I am thrilled by that. Fantastic.
Yep, I'm
Thank you.
very, very pleased. Moving on a little bit here, I mean, we did have a lot of discussion on energy issues, and I have to say I am absolutely thrilled with the portion of Senate Bill 4 that adds geothermal to the law and lets either PURA or a municipality or an authority to create a system of geothermal networks. And I was absolutely thrilled to work with State Representative Winter, who was able to create a geothermal network in the New Haven rail station and get federal funding for that. I'm not sure how we'll be able to access more federal funding, but we do have a series of ways of dealing with these issues, and it will expand access to energy, which I think is one of the more crucial aspects of how we take care of our energy costs. But we also address energy costs.
Yeah, I mean, that was a big bill.
Yeah, it was.
Again, it was nice to see it be bipartisan.
Yes.
What's been a very
I'm sorry?
I just remind people, the state of Connecticut is in charge of a third. That's it, a third of the bill. So a lot of it is out of our control. But we did try to begin to manage costs that are under our control now, right?
Yes.
And so it was a good start. There's more to do. We also rebalanced PURA.
Mm-hmm.
I've never ever talked about PURA for the first 14 years of my career, and all of a sudden I got asked about PURA on every 5 minutes.
Yep.
And so I think the governor going to 5 on PURA is the right thing. That's, by the way, the law. We've been ignoring the law as a state for years now. I think we need to get a few more minds on PURA, rebalance it a little bit. It sounds like a couple of women are going to go on, and I typically find that women are good at much better than men at going in there and beginning to facilitate better dialogue and a better approach to how they're going to govern PURA. So I'm really excited about that, and I think it will help a lot going forward. I really do.
Yeah, I agree completely, and I was pleased to see the movement on these things. And of course, the third of the bill that is EverSource is the transmission lines, and that is one of the things that we can govern and we can take a look at. And I've spent my first 2 terms at the Capitol on the Energy and Technology Committees, and back here when I was on the council in Windham, I also oversaw the trash-to-energy plant. I oversaw the landfills, the waterworks, and the collection of garbage. I chaired the Mid-Northeast Recycling Operating Committee, and we were able to increase regionally recycling. And here in town, I went from 8% to 30% recycling. So we were able to do a lot of different things. So that's one of the reasons I was so interested in the Energy and Technology Committee when I first got to the Capitol. And also, we have the Energy Institute. Now it's the Sustainability Institute at Eastern Connecticut State University, and that is something that is also a reason that I wanted to go on the Energy and Technology Committee initially. But also, of course, as you know, Mr. Speaker, one of the other things that I'm focused on is the Medicaid and healthcare industry, so which is something I've spent probably more of my time on at the Capitol than these issues. But I was really inspired by Representative Winter's work for geothermal and the opportunities to expand access to different types of energy, and hope that I'm going to try and work on a group meeting to go to other places that have done more geothermal work and see how they look and what the cost was and what the investment is. And finally, we also have a new town manager here, Zarnetsky, Town Manager Zarnetsky. And his background is with respect to geothermal networks. So I'm going to be working with him and maybe some people at the Capitol, because I understand there's some new procedures going on there that perhaps they might want to take a look and see other options. So take a look and see how we can utilize the existing infrastructure in the urban areas, whether it's a sewage treatment pipe that can be utilized, and this is something that my town manager has an expertise in, or whether you create, the actual geothermal systems that also can be addressed by whatever the authorities are or the municipality wants to do or Pura wants to do.
Yeah, Matt, our new town manager, Rob Zarnetsky, is a very experienced guy. He's worked with the federal government, and he is like Susan. He wants to know everything about everything. I wish I could be like that, but I'm not. I like what you said a few minutes ago about putting a bunch of women in a room and they'll work things out a lot better than men will. And, it's not always, but the chances are pretty good. Now, I went with Susan to the Women in Government Conference out in St. Louis. One of the reasons I went out there was because I like going to the conferences and being there with her. But I'm also a St. Louis Cardinals fan ever since I was 6 years old, 1949. I've seen Stan Musial play many times. I saw Willie Mays and Jackie Robinson play in New York City. And I'll tell you somebody else that you know who's a big Cardinals fan. You may not know it, but I'm sure you're familiar with Howie Dickinman, who used to be the assistant coach at UConn. He is a big St. Louis Cardinals fan as well. So there's at least two of us. There's at least two of us in Connecticut. Anyway, I went out to
Cook, a former colleague of ours.
Oh, well, yeah. She was at one of the games with us out there.
Yeah, we went to a game together. I'll have to post our pictures because we're all there with her. And it was the first the game we went to with Michelle Cook, former Representative Michelle Cook, was the first game that they had a concert afterwards. So we were able to all get together and we're running down into.
It was a country band, not my thing, but they were good. It was like country rock.
2 minutes, Dennis. We're gonna
let we're down to 2 minutes.
2 minutes. We're going to let our speaker have some last words, and we are so thankful for you being in on Let's Talk About It today and having this great discussion about all the very important changes, and there's many more as well, but I think we hit on a lot of the things that mean a lot to Windham and the state, and so I can't thank you enough for being here, but a few final words.
No, it's thanks for having me and be a part of it, and also thanks for doing the show. I mean, right now, it's hard to find, I think, whether it's print or radio or social media, I think people are always wondering about who's telling what's the truth, what's the news story. And I think the more that local people who know what's going on, who have connections to their community, bring on different guests, talk about topics, I mean, I think that really hits home. I think that's the true local stuff that sometimes is missing from, wire stories and things like that. So for folks listening, I mean, this is just your state government. You've got great local officials who are working hard on your behalf, and we're just giving you our honest opinions about a situation. Folks may disagree, but the more that people in the political world do these types of things locally and talk about issues locally, I think it will help a lot.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker, for being here with us today, and we look forward to many more shows and having you back.
Thank you so much, Matt, for your wisdom and
Thanks
your
again
kind
for having
words.
me.
Appreciate it a lot.
Have a great summer. Thanks.
Okay,
Talk
you
to